focused on sharing truthful information that's science-based for vaccines, information from trusted voices. VAX Truth received a grant from the CDC, and that stands for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, where we raise awareness in the Black and brown communities to stop the spread of COVID-19, to save lives, and so much more. Today, I want to introduce you to my special guest, Miss Sarah Ann Preston. Sarah and Preston, welcome.
Hi, Tamika. Thanks for having us here today.
Thank you so much. So what I like to always start with our segment here on Radio Evolution Enter, and thank you so much, Pauline Jean Simon with AVID, as well as Santa Plus Medical Center and Best Insurance USA. I like to also thank Madel, who is on the recording and making all of this possible. Thank you so much for this opportunity, giving us this platform every month for 1 hour, which is so amazing. This radio station reaches 5 counties and 50,000 people, so we are so blessed. So what we'll do is we'll have a conversation about COVID-19 and how it has affected you personally. So what we'll do is we'll start with Sarah. If you could start by introducing yourself, and then we'll have Preston introduce himself, and then we'll get into the COVID-19 conversation.
Great, thanks, Tamika. So my name's Sarah Adamako. I have worked in non-profit and business development and international development for about 25 years, and my company is MarketWorks Global. We are global, and we have a headquarters here in Fort Myers as well. So I am really happy to be here, and my focus here in Fort Myers is actually working on developing non-profit projects that actually allow the community to have more inclusive business growth. Not just the big businesses growing, but small businesses and non-profit growing as we develop economically in Fort Myers. So that is my mission.
Yeah, that's amazing, because small businesses actually make up most of the businesses here. So it's very important, and I like the work that you're doing with Southwest Florida Impact Partners, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the show, how bigger companies can utilize the services of smaller companies, because that helps with sustainability and revenue, and so that they could survive and then start. We talked about scaling and thinking outside the box, becoming that big guy. So I can't wait to have that conversation. Preston, please introduce yourself.
Well, my name's Preston Willingham, and I'm an inventor.
Wow.
And I am part of the company. I am I work for Sarah now.
Of course, she's amazing.
As she helps me build a new factory.
Wow.
I'm trying to move my factories back from Asia, and Fort Myers is a target area.
Wow.
And it's so fantastic to be here, because my first factory offshore was in Haiti.
Really? Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Can you please share with us what that factory was in Haiti and in Asia, and why you decided to move back to Southwest Florida to have your business headquartered here?
Yes. My first factory was making soft sculptures, because the people of Haiti are so talented and multi-talented. And I wanted to move there to make something I couldn't make in America because of the artistic craftsmanship of the Haitian artisans. So I had that for a number of years, and then we got to a point where the quantities and the offers came from Asia, where I moved it like many other people did, offshore, and then many years later I've come to regret moving it offshore.
Wow.
And trying to move it back, and now there's organizations like you're sponsored by organizations, and Sarah is really leading me in this charge of being able to go into private and public help. I'm looking for help, just like any other entrepreneur, to relocate and find the assistance from government and private sectors to have an impact, more than just make me money in my pocket, make everybody I'm working with put money in their pockets. So it's more real, like more like a family business, and just instead of just business. business that it affects everybody in a positive way.
Right.
And that's going to make it all better for everybody.
Thank you. That is so amazing. Thank you. I actually interviewed someone today on my podcast, and we had that same conversation about being selfless and being of service to others and making sure you're passionate about what you're doing and it's not all about the money.
That's right.
Because you will be taken care of no matter what. So thank you so much. That's so amazing. So steering in the direction of COVID-19, and you guys are both entrepreneurs and business owners. How has COVID-19 affected you? Because here we are in a couple of years in, and I think it's here to stay. It's kind of something that we have to get used to and learn to live with. This is our new normal. So we'll start with you, Sarah. How has it affected you? What were the thoughts in your head when you first heard about COVID-19, the first cases, and then the trickle-down effect?
When I first heard about it, it was so unknown, and you just had to say a prayer and say whatever's going to happen, just everyone be safe. But it was really this unknown thing. For me, looking back, it's been good and it's been bad. Things have happened that you couldn't have imagined happening before. I've lost one family member, but not to COVID, but due to the system that happened, the health system that was impacted during COVID. I've had COVID, I think 2 or 3 times.
Wow!
3 times.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. And at the same time, I actually started the business in the US during COVID.
Wow.
So it was global, and we were doing work in Africa and in the UK. But one of the things happened sitting here. COVID was an opportunity to actually think through what life really means, and like you said about purpose, and so my focus here is really on profiting with purpose. But that's really, for me, it's been a blessing, because it's what was bad about COVID also pushed me to create some better things out of COVID. But in terms of the disease itself, I think it's revealed a lot about the infrastructure of our country,
right?
Both in America, UK, etc., globally, and it's revealed a lot about human behavior.
Yes.
People have actually been better towards each other, being kinder, being more thoughtful in some ways, because of the fear that surrounded COVID at the height of COVID, when people were dying. And I think, but in terms of the economics of it, it's been bad for most people in terms of the inflation and everything else that has resulted. That's really, I've dwelt on trying to not just recover, but helping people and organizations build back after COVID, and that was my focus even during COVID, was how do people recover and build back.
Yeah, that's amazing how during COVID you saw how some businesses thrive and then a lot of businesses went out of business. And what I saw was the businesses who were innovative and who were willing to change with times, such as the restaurants who began delivering and communicating more with their clients. They were booming.
Yeah, we have case studies on those.
Right.
Absolutely booming. What we call it is they've repurposed and pivoted.
Exactly.
And that's the thing that businesses have to try and think of now. How do you repurpose or pivot? Repurpose means how do you change the products you're delivering with the systems you have in place already? We saw, like you say, we saw drinks companies, distillery companies turn to hand sanitizer. And now many of them realize they've got the capabilities of creating detergents.
Right.
And then we saw restaurants turn their restaurants into not just takeouts, but some of them turned it into shopping, where they actually sold their supplies as store owners and stuff, and did drive-through deliveries. So again, how do we see that? That was great, and that's what caused me to think, how do I really help businesses build back after COVID? Non-profits access the grants they need to partner better, because partnership became a thing during COVID.
Yes, it did.
And that's what businesses have to do better, especially small businesses and non-profits.
Especially, I know for me as a consulting firm, you would think that it would have been tough, but for me, my business actually picked up, but in the virtual world, because more nonprofits were open to having virtual events, and I was contacted. I had never done a virtual event before, but they were too scared to take it on themselves, and I said, wait a minute. The same principles apply to an in-person event, but it's just virtual. So I'm sure if we hired some AV guys, they could figure out how to stream it on Zoom and how to stream it on the different social media platforms, and I just follow the same recipe, and it was a success.
It's great, because it's needed. And the whole social and economic development spectrum was needed during COVID even more, and now it's needed. and there's so much on the table for non-profits to access. But how do you do it? But it was needed. So
Right.
it is really interesting what you're saying. And did you go on to do more? I shouldn't be asking the question.
Well, the funny thing is, the virtual events, my clients actually raised more money during their virtual events because they didn't have the expenses of renting a hotel ballroom, paying for food and drinks. But in their mind, I guess it was more comfortable for having a live event because they always feel that people just don't want it to give, but they don't realize they're giving to you a mission because they believe in the mission, but they have, I guess, a consumer mentality that they have to get something if they make a donation through the ticket sales, and then they have dinner, and then they have the drinks. So unfortunately, all the clients went back to live events.
Live events, right.
Which saddened me because they had made more money. So
saved more.
Because, right, they didn't have all the expenses, so I couldn't understand why they wanted to go back, but, we went back to that, but I was surprised because I thought we learned a lesson about being more efficient and more effective in how we operate, but it's the mentality, because I always say having an event is the most expensive way to raise money because you have the expenses, but not only the staffing time that it goes into planning an event, and then you really, for the most part, I would say 90% of the people are only transaction donors. They're not loyal to your organization because the sponsors who say you did a $10,000 sponsorship and you got 10 tickets, well, I'm inviting you. The only reason why you came to this event is because you're my friend.
That's right.
And I invited you. So you're not really my donors. So if you want to go through all of that trouble and all the time, okay, let's figure out how to change these transactional donors into regular donors. What is the follow-up after the event? Are we calling them and we thanking them? At the event, are we collecting their information? Because guess what? If you're my donor and you go away, that whole relationship goes away. But if I transfer that relationship with Preston, you brought Preston, I got him on my e-newsletter. I got him involved as a volunteer. I gave him a tour of my domestic, my DV shelter. Now you're gone, but Preston might be passionate about it, so he stays. But unfortunately, a lot of nonprofits don't have that follow-up plan in place to transfer those donors. Preston, so what do you think about all this conversation?
Well, I think you just made a perfect point of what you saw in your pivot is that every entrepreneur listening to us right now could think, wow, this is such an unsettled time and there's so much change. But all great inventions, all great new businesses start during or just after wars and famines and what we've been through with COVID-19. So you're thinking of that. For you, a person that's listening to us can really look at what they're doing and rethink. If anything COVID can do is make us all rethink of what was different. It gives you an idea to look from above, look from the sky, out of the trees, as they call it, and look at the forest and pivot without losing momentum. I like to talk about pivoting, which a lot of people go, well, I've been going in this direction. If I go just back in the opposite direction, I'm losing. No, only if you lose momentum. It's good to be able to pivot and relook at things and decide, what did I learn during this and what can I benefit by seeing new and possibly seeing that you had all the materials you needed and all the talents you needed and just pivot in a new direction and take advantage of the unsettled moment to grow and move forward. I think it's really a great time to reflect like you did and see it in a different way.
Right, exactly. So I know earlier, Sarah, we talked about thinking like a business and running your nonprofit like a business. Just thinking about COVID, because we don't want to jump off the whole vaccine COVID-19 conversation, but how could, during the pandemic, which we are still in the pandemic, how were you able to be more, I guess, innovative or creative with your business?
Interesting question, and it's a great question because it goes back to what you said about the use of the virtual tools and audiovisual. It was during COVID I started the business, and I remember looking back at what I could learn from I have another business that's international, and we in 19 countries, and we deal with non-profits again and development. And I thought, what can I learn from starting that business, making mistakes in that business and having to restructure it? What I could learn is that it is very important to set that foundation on the business. So I have the planning in place, and I can see your shirt says strategic planning.
Yes.
A lot of non-profits underestimate what that means from the beginning. And the planning part is so important. And, you write down those visions, you write down the purpose, write down what your position is in the marketplace. Because we have to think as businesses, as a non-profit, what a social enterprise too, because a non-profit doesn't not make revenue. They make revenue and they still have to find innovative ways of making revenue, not necessarily just grant systems. How can they be a business that actually understands what their position is in the market? And the market meaning who are their clients who benefits from their programs, but also their funders, where they want to access their money and create their revenue. They're also their clients. They need to think in that, and that's why it's harder to run a non-profit and a social enterprise than it is to actually run a for-profit business.
Right.
And that's why we have so many fledgling ones that go under or don't grow for decades.
Right, exactly. Because if you look on Sunbiz, which is the entity where you go to register your business and your fictitious name and all that other good stuff, all the businesses and nonprofits that are in inactive status because we have a passion for a particular thing, but in the nonprofit world we talk about strategic planning, but really in the for-profit and both nonprofit we should have a business plan with our goals, our objectives, our projections. For this year I want to have $1 million in revenue, and these are the different streams.
Exactly.
Different streams of income. Yeah. Because some things always slow down in a certain area or dry up. So we want to be always thinking about that.
That's right. And if you look closely, what we see is, I was talking with Preston, since he's a client, about the fact that bigger businesses, and he's trying to grow a business that's manufacturing, but he wants to put a non-profit component in it. Now, most businesses now are doing that. Even look up Nike, the Nike Foundation.
Right.
All of them have a non-profit focus. And with that non-profit focus, it's because they're saying we want to make an impact, but we have our regular income stream that's actually donating to that. But they're also getting non-profit grants the way small businesses are. But because they have a foundation of revenue streams, they're attracting more grants. So in fact, where you have non-profit grants available, still it's the bigger companies that are getting hold of that. Because of the fact that they have the track record, they have the co-funding, the matched funding available. So we as non-profits have to start thinking of, wait, can I partner with a coffee shop, or can I be a coffee shop? Can I partner with another coffee shop? Have my non-profit as a partner. We actually share a program. That is what businesses are doing these days. Bigger businesses are doing it. They call it the adopt a non-profit. In other countries, they are adopting non-profits. And that's their CSR, corporate social responsibility, and working with the non-profit.
Exactly.
So how do we start thinking bigger with partnerships? Because it's not just attracting funding, then we make bigger impact too as non-profits if we have the right partners.
Right, exactly. I like that because it's a win-win for the company because they look great in the eyes of the community, and some people will shop with them just because the impact they make in the community. I'm sure there's a tax break that's in there.
Of course, I'll give an example of Preston's company. If he used to bring manufacturing to Fort Myers, one of the things that we're looking at with impact investors is basically how do you then make sure that, as he said, the manufacturing components reach the most in need in the community. So maybe how do we then get a training grant to train, disadvantaged women, women who have been past victims of violence as well? How do we get a training grant to actually train these women in the factories, etc. Or especially since they have a skill with their hands. How do we maximize that? Women who have not had access to that training
Right.
or job opportunity. And then that company would not just be a for-profit, but they would actually make a less risky venture for the grant givers.
Right.
Because they have a business that these women feed into, and the non-profit grant becomes something that is utilized really effectively.
Right, right.
And that's why partnerships are really important.
Really, and you know that I'm thinking about the bigger companies you mentioned that have the foundation component, and they also have that advantage because I'm sure they have legal. I'm sure they probably hire the best and top talent, and they pay them well, and I'm sure they have a business plan in place, so they're going to do it right, whereas someone who dealt with cancer or someone in their family, they wanted to start a nonprofit, and they just started it, but they still work part-time, full-time.
Yeah.
And they have this nonprofit, and they just can't figure out why I'm being rejected for grants or why I'm not growing. But they don't understand what you really did was to start a new business, and really you really need to go in full time if you really want it to be successful. So Preston, so tell us about the nonprofit component that you are planning for your new business venture. Can you share that?
Yes.
And why? The question, why?
Well, I was fortunate enough with my inventions early on to reach 33 countries. But with every new invention, it has a lifetime, and you grow it, but then you have to start over, just like everybody does. Maybe with more knowledge, more experience, a little less fear, but at the same time you have to use the same elements you did from the very first day you were just you on a table dreaming of your future. So with this nonprofit, it's a very, very large sculptural artist experience. It will be around 10 stories tall, and when a young person dedicates their vision to become a person that's educated in STEAM, used to be called STEM, and now it's STEAM, it's science, engineering, art, and mathematics. And
This is the second non-profit he's actually talking about two.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he's very ambitious.
Wow.
Yes, because if you start something, and I will answer your question, but if you start something, and I like to talk to people that have a dream and they're entrepreneurs and they're opening up whatever they're trying to do, whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit company, if you do it with the right heart, in the way you're going to treat your employees or treat yourself or treat your time, how precious your time is, that if you do it like you're a big company, you would do it with that much heart behind it, you won't stop growing. You have to have that vision of this could be global. If it works, remember, McDonald's started with one store.
Yes, they did.
Nike started with two pairs of shoes.
Wow. In the back of a car.
In the back of a car.
Wow.
Everybody has to remember that all these huge corporations started just like they're starting their company. And I'm starting, and that's why I'm with Sarah on this project. I wanted to make sure I started my for-profit company that had a component from the very first day that has a non-profit.
I love it.
Not until I make money. Or, some people might start off with, with my new company, I'm going to make sure to tithe. They might just start off their nonprofit just with their local place of worship. But they start off from day one. I'm going to do this from day one.
Wow.
And although it's hard, I'm going to always set aside some for others. So my nonprofits have to do with inspiring young people to study as hard as possible in school.
Interesting.
And why? Why? Because money just doesn't make young people that are 12, 13, they want to do something, but why go through this and have to study so hard. And I'm trying to inspire them through those times of not understanding why they got to spend time doing their homework, why listening to their parents really makes sense.
And to add to that, one of the things that's special with that STEAM program with the young people is children that are different learners. You know, we talk
Right.
about normal learning, but who says it's
What is normal?
That's the masses.
Yeah.
But really, there's the different learners who are usually quite gifted, but they can't pass the general routine exams. But they're gifted, they have ideas, and how do you get that down on paper? How do you give them room in a program to be able to translate that thought into a message or into an idea or innovation, especially? Because this is where innovation comes from. A lot of people who actually don't get through school.
Right.
And I'm sitting
Yeah.
here as an example. I couldn't even get out of first grade.
Really? Why?
I still cannot
He's different learner.
say the alphabet to you, especially on a microphone when I'm nervous like this. So, but here I have over 80 global patents.
Wow.
But school doesn't fit the way I learn. But if you reach out and you really care, there are people in organizations, many that you help, the non-profit groups. If you want to go out, and I found a mentor that helped me learn how to read every day after school, all the way through college. I had to have somebody help me. And there's people that are out there that want to help you. If you reach out and say, I can't do this, I can't do math, I can't spell, I can't read, I can't do these things. There are organizations that will help you and come alongside you. That's why I'm so excited about this. The group that we were with today, what's their name, Sarah?
Which one? Miss Lee's
Ford's
South
group?
Impact, Southwest Florida Impact
Partners.
Partners. No, there's a whole organization right here in your county that is looking for people that want to succeed in business. And if you just come and meet them and tell them about your dreams or your brand new business or your business that you've started, they have whole groups that will help you with filing for your tax status, help you with your accounting, help you with your marketing for no money.
Right.
They're right here.
They are.
This is like here, her group, exactly.
Yeah.
That's the-
Why you're doing this radio show is to help people that want to help themselves.
Right.
And for someone like myself, I needed that help. And now I've employed hundreds of people in my lifetime and been able to do a lot of great things, but I can't spell to this day.
Wow.
So if you reach out, if you're not weak to ask for help.
Right.
The only losing is not
Asking. Right. And I've heard many business owners say, hey, I don't have to know everything. You could hire
That's exactly, yeah.
people who are strong where you are weak. So you don't have to know everything. You just have to have the Sarahs of the world and the TAMIKAs of the world and the Lees of the world to help you get there. But you just have to have the vision,
Yeah.
pushed with passion behind it to actually do what you want to do. So that's really amazing.
But going back to what you said as well about COVID, one of the things that there's two streams that have been inspired.
Speak a little bit closer to the
That have
mic.
been inspired with even what I'm doing with Preston. The women, for instance, we know that gender-based violence really increased so much during COVID.
Why is that?
The base, I mean, this is worldwide. We did a study in Kenya. I did a study in Kenya with the World Bank on the impact of just women-owned businesses and the household impact during COVID, and whether there was more emotional strife. And it was obviously to do with the fact that people were deferring payments. People were trying to compensate for lost income. So they were losing income in the household. Even though we had the bailouts here, we had we had a lot of grant given during COVID. There was still economic strife in households, and any recession, violence goes up.
Right. And drug use.
And drug use
Yes.
goes up. So that was happening. Even the numbers worldwide, if anyone was to just Google it, gender-based violence went up worldwide. So one of the shelters apparently were full.
Wow. The shelters were full during COVID-19
So a
because
lot of
more
shelters,
women were being
were
abused.
Worldwide, as far Africa, cities in Africa, urban cities in the States, in UK, it went up. So one of the things that drove a lot of the call for support during COVID was actually how to work with women victims as well. So, and one of the projects that we kind of were thinking of was actually working with women who were survivors. So with the shelters, to actually train them to become, to become basically empowered economically, so they can develop an income stream.
That is amazing, because I remember I was married for 15 years, and thank God, because I really didn't have to work because my husband took care of everything, but something deep in my soul told me to go back to school. I had my associate's degree, and I went back to school. I got my bachelor's degree, my master's degree. You know what my husband told me? You don't need me anymore. And I didn't understand that until after my divorce. I'm like, what does he mean by that? Because I had, with my degree, my career was growing, and I started hanging around with different groups.
Yep.
And he was a blue-collar worker, so I guess that made him feel uncomfortable. And maybe he felt that eventually I would meet someone, I guess, better. But but all I could think about was thank God, because when I did get a divorce, I was able to move out with no problem, get my own place, and eventually purchase my own home. And a lot of women can't do that because the spouse, the husband is usually the breadwinner. Maybe she stays at home and raises the kids, and just not financially able to move on. But imagine if more were empowered to be okay after that. I think that would really make a huge impact.
And it has to be with that economic empowerment, emotional empowerment. I mean, I'm working with Venezuelan migrant women now in the Caribbean, and it's the same situation. So as migrants as well, they are in relationships of dependency. So it crosses the board in all socio-economic groups. You didn't need to work, and there are women who are with people who are women who are displaced, who also are in situations of dependency. People look and think, oh, middle-income women don't have the same issues. It is, relationships are relationships, and these things manifest in different ways.
Exactly. And when I was a fundraiser at an abused women's shelter, some of the women who were married to millionaires and live in homes in Port Royal and Naples, they were being abused too.
Absolutely.
But a lot of them didn't want to leave because they didn't want to leave that lifestyle, or they didn't want the police showing up at their house, because what would the neighbors think? Because the sheriff was on the board, and they had this map of all the calls they received, and you would see in all of the, I guess, the lower class areas where all the calls were being made, and you would look in some of the higher income levels, there were very few, but that doesn't mean that the women were not being abused there. And I was like, wow, I didn't think about that.
Oh yeah, it's when I went back to the UK after working in development for 20 years, I remember saying to a group of women, my goodness me, do you know that rights are rights everywhere, human rights? And do you realize that what we call a vulnerable dependent woman is not just a woman in Africa or migrant. It's a vulnerable dependent woman. It's a woman that's economically disadvantaged, even in a situation, even if she's living in a good lifestyle. But if she's not empowered to express who she is, we have one life. And if she's not empowered to express who she is, whether it's as a mother, as a wife, as a worker, if she's living less than what she thinks she's worth and being felt to be worthless, then she's not maximizing her one life that she has. And there's different forms of gender-based violence. It's not just physical, it's emotional, it's threats. They call it, there's intimate partner violence. There's abuse. Well, verbal abuse. There's just putting someone down and making them feel small. That is a form of emotional abuse.
It really is.
So it's something that we've seen, and it's really hard to deal with that. But when we go through just employment and letting someone like you maximizing their purpose, it goes a long way. Even and I think counseling with the relationship. So I think counseling went up during COVID, because it wasn't just about the woman then, it was also counseling the man in his fears, as you're saying, because if there's no outlet there, then it can resort to violence, whether emotional abuse. So this is what we see as well in the program, is that we also need to counsel the so-called perpetrator.
Yeah, that's true.
Because then they also have their fears. And that's a big deal.
And to bring it right back to this county right here, one of the ideas for one of our missions that we're discussing is a lot of people that would like a job, let's say at the abusive center, to help people, and maybe they want to become independent. But how do you get into a track like that? Well, with Sarah's work and with my work, we're combining the invention with the impact. And maybe I come up with a machine that helps people that have never sewn before, but have the drive and the ability, but never the opportunity to come alongside and build a machine that they could sew something very complicated, but is not hard to operate. And that would take out that 15 years of learning how to be an incredible seamstress by having it partially computer animated, but it always takes a human. Remember, even cars are made by robots, but now there's so many jobs of people fixing the robots and always watching and placing different parts within the system. So what we're thinking is maybe there's an organization like you were involved with that would say, who wants to learn how to operate these things and have an independent position and grow within a company? Well, we start that company here, give those positions that would be grant-driven because of their situation, but also paid for by the profits of the company for the people that are training them. So it's a partnership between all these relationships that would give opportunity for someone that's never worked but loved to make things. And next thing you know, they're totally independent and can bring maybe their relationships mend. So now they're a two-income family, or if not, independently, funding themselves through a new learned skill. That's what we're working on.
That sounds amazing. One of my clients is a group in Naples. They're called Leading the Ladies of Southwest Florida. And their mission is to provide scholarships for single parents if they wanted to pursue a degree. So that's a $2,000 scholarship. And also they want to actually provide scholarships for women who are starting their business. So that I'm just thinking about all kinds of little partnerships and different things for funding if they want to pursue the entrepreneurial route or continue their education. And also in the building where my office is located, there's a gentleman who is a seamstress. And he's actually altered some drapes for us and done all kinds of stuff. So I'm thinking, like, he's amazing too. So there's so many partnerships, and I like what Sarah said about partnerships and working together, because together we can move mountains and share our knowledge. Because right now I'm just blown away, because here I am, I'm doing my nonprofit consulting, and when I first saw Sarah give a speech at the Southwest Florida Impact Partners, when you mentioned global, my mind was blown away. I was like, I have to meet her. Because when I first decided to be intentional about Grow Your Nonprofit, which was actually last year, being more focused, and I interviewed on the Lee Pitts live show. And I have to show you I'll have to email you the interview, the video. And that's the first thing I talked about, was going global. And I said, I want to go global. I want to produce my book, and that turns into speaking engagements where I speak globally to the nonprofit world. And here Miss Sarah comes along with this beautiful accent, and I'm like, the heavens came over. I was like, yes. So God is good, because He answers your prayers, but at the right time. It had to take over a year. It had to take over a year before Sarah came. So I'm humbly waiting for some of the crumbs to drop and the knowledge to learn.
Big chunks.
I'm all about growth. I'm a lifelong student, so I'm here to learn.
No, this is great, and I think this is one of the things you're saying is COVID. I mean, you're saying a year ago, COVID really got us thinking outside the box a lot more. I mean, so for me, you're right with COVID. One of the things, the voices I heard in my head was, build it slowly. So, you know, you talked about people having another job and then going into their non-profit and trying to hit the ground running. That doesn't work.
Right.
You have got to build that structure.
Right.
And for me, the structure was, you talked about praying to go global. I talked about praying for partners. Because partnership is huge. You know, it's really huge. And so the way your partners come and the way you identify, you have to write down what your needs are. And it's not just pulling on what can you give to your partner. So you and I talked about that. It's not about what you need. It's about also what you need to give.
Exactly.
Out. Because as you give out, you grow.
Right.
You know, many people start a non-profit and then they're not giving out. They need all this stuff coming in. But the only way you grow and get more knowledge is to give out.
Right.
And you know, you've seen about the monkey in the jar. If you let go of what you think you need and actually give instead, you find a lot more coming back in the sense that you're growing in your knowledge, in your partners, in your network, and trust, because trust is very big. And
Right.
if you're going into relationships only saying, what can I get, then you're never going to have that
Right.
trust built between you and the next person. And you can share information, you can co-opt as in partner together, and still, you know, keep your, you can share trade secrets and still keep your business growing. Many non-profits don't want to share ideas.
Oh, no, they
The
don't.
silo effect, many don't want to. And that's where, if you start to think of giving first, then you openly share, and then you see you get a lot more back. You know.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, any last words? We're down to our last about 12 minutes.
Well, I do have something that I learned from Lee Ford today, which he voiced it perfectly. It's something that is just, I guess, intuitive for myself, but when I heard him say it, it really rang, and he tries to tell as many budding entrepreneurs or those that are trying to grow their business and they've kind of reached a plateau and they want to grow it bigger and make more profit and or expand in any way, was your time management, your business time management. And it's so important that when you look at your day, from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, how much time you allow to leak out of your day is like money falling out of your pocket. When a friend wants to talk to you, he mentioned it about a football game, or someone just wants to talk to you about their relationship or something, and you've got to be really careful with your time.
Oh, amen, amen.
TV or what have you, that if you are trying to build your business, that extra 2 hours, and you've got to just really be self-disciplined to use your time very, very wisely each day. And it's amazing how quickly that investment of your time, because it's the only thing you can't get back.
Exactly. And everyone has 24 hours. So what do you do with those 24 hours allotted? There's this reel on Facebook that I recently saw, and I had to see it 3 times. It says, if you're calling me with negative news, don't call me. If you're calling me with negative energy to talk about somebody else, don't call me. And I was like, amen. Especially as a business owner, and this is your bread and butter. I'm not punching the clock where I know I'm getting paid for 40 hours a week. This is my salary. This is your livelihood. So you have to let your network of people know, hey. Now, of course, if you lost someone in the family, that's fine. But if you're just a negative person and just allowing that to come to you, it really affects you mentally.
It does.
So you have to be very protective of your time and your heart.
Disciplined, isn't it? Very disciplined. Very.
Okay, so before we wrap up, any advice you could give to a nonprofit who is either just starting out or stagnant, and they're just so frustrated because they just can't grow?
Actually, one of the things I'm doing in the Caribbean is actually working with an organization that is helping non-profits. And one of the things we're doing is how do we shape the training and the learning around the non-profits that need to grow. And I think the first thing is almost like problem solving, finding out from them. So I do believe in information is so important to drive decision making. Many of organizations start and say, okay, I need to grow, but they don't do a self-diagnosis,
Right.
self-evaluation, but they don't know how. So some of the things we do as well is we actually do when we're doing this here is actually developing this kind of self-diagnostic kit, but we administer it. And it's really around not just the general questions like what's your business doing, what's your turnover, but what are your specific, breaking down the challenges. We talked about it, single mothers can't attend training. They can't.
Yeah.
And when they start answering the questions, they start to see, why it wasn't working before.
Right.
Even before you start to say, what do you think your needs are? You know, so I would say for those stagnating, it's really, first of all, the self-diagnosis, but with the right set of questions. We can start to publish those questions so people can really go through that themselves. And then, at the same time, then say partnerships, because when you start doing the self-diagnosis, you start to see the road you've come from, what the problems were, even as simple as, during my day I wasn't really spending 8 hours because I was distracted 2 hours a day,
Right.
or I had to go pick up my kids. Okay, then how can you, when I first started my business, which operated on a non-profit basis, within 6 months we moved into 19 countries, so including islands in the Caribbean and Latin America. But what the key thing was, it was mainly women, 11 women in the business, but we grew from 2 people in a small room. And what happened was, the deal was we knew that it was going to be picking up kids from school, all kinds of things. How can we compete in that environment with writing grants, responding to proposals and bids? Because that is the first thing that breaks any non-profit if you don't consistently, not get consistently get a stream of income. We started making sure that we set up a carpool system. Then we set up an aftercare system after benefits. So it's really about building the structures, understanding where the gaps are and starting to figure out how do we do it. Now you have, for instance, the collaboratory here, which is very great in Lee County, because that's a place that provides certain services for small non-profits. Now, the same way to provide things like care, pick-up service, those things are really important. My company did that, and we grew so fast. You know, so, I mean, there's reasons why I scaled it back for a while, but now we've started it again. But it's really about that diagnosis first, and then getting the partners to help you, and then planning for the weaknesses that you have. So as an organization, we can't do everything. We can't be all things for everyone. Planning for like you say, the accountant service, the marketing service, and there's grants out there for that. Many people don't realize. So even in starting this company in the US, MarketWorks, one of the first things I did was say, 2 years of starting it, I wasn't going to make income on it because I was going to build the structures, and I was going to build the partners. I was going to build the strategic plan, and I was going to basically start to structure just the whole value system as well, and live out that vision of value system. And I think too many non-profits just jump in.
Right.
So a failure is not really a failure. I think it's a pause and a way for them to start to relearn and learn from the mistakes to move forward. I don't think any non-profit should say I've failed, but should really say, what can I learn and do it better? And can I like that? Can I not go into debt so that I have to drop my company? Can I make it dormant, inactivate it again while I rebuild?
Right.
You know, I never be. I did that after running my business for 12 years.
Yeah, I like that what you said about putting the structure in place and then starting it, because I text message you the address, and I'm sure you put it in the GPS, right? So the GPS got you here.
That's right.
Same thing with really everything in life, having that GPS system that's going to guide you to step A, step B, step C, till you get to that destination. And once you get to that destination, then you need another plan of action once you get there. So planning is very important, whether it's for a nonprofit or a for-profit, and even in your personal life.
The milestones,
Planning is very important. Preston, any last words? We're down to 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, you guys just set me up like a golf ball on a tee.
We had a lot of fun with Preston today.
Yeah, because
you put him on the spot.
Yes.
This is, I'm passionate about what you're talking about in the moment of the planning, the structure. A lot of people that go out, whether you're asking for money to invest in your invention, or asking for money for your nonprofit. And I would suggest finding that person that's the most passionate, that is super successful, a mentor. And instead of asking them for money, first thing you would say, I would like to talk to you. I'm not asking for money. Find a mentor. If you don't know how to plan, you have a big vision, you don't know the address to put in the GPS, ask that mentor to put the address in your GPS for you. Don't ask for money.
Right.
They would rather mentor you and give all that knowledge, because anybody that's successful and has a caring, giving heart would love to teach. And they will teach, and then they will share their networks with you. And sooner or later, once you've grown up and you've learned, the money will be
come.
given to you.
Yes.
So get that GPS from a mentor, and they might be younger than you. A mentor might be younger. Mentors usually are older, but
Right.
they might be younger. And don't be afraid to ask, and then come alongside and say, I need the directions. I need to know how to read a balance sheet. I don't need to know how to do the balance sheet. I need to know how to read one. And who do I get to help me do that? Or whatever it might be. I need legal help. Where is there free legal help for this? If you have the right mentor, they come with all the connections, all the directions on the GPS. Be willing to learn and have an ego of, I want to learn. Don't have too much of an ego to not be able to ask.
Yes.
To not everybody, all the greatest, are always learning. It's always, no matter how successful you are, you should be learning, and the way to do that is to ask others for their knowledge. And most people will share it for free, and then once they know you're for real, and you show up when you say you're going to show up,
That's so important.
you never discount anybody else's time. You're always polite. Everything your grandmother told you to do.
Yes, very
And the
important.
one thing you said, taking it back to you, was, and don't quit your day job, because people have to have jobs and income. So many people start non-profits and put everything into, but with all that learning and mentorship, you got to have something else while you're structuring.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, Sarah, so tell our audience how people can reach you.
Okay, so my company is called MarketWorks Global, and so that's marketworksglobal.com on the internet, and my details are on there too. So, and I will obviously give you my details to
Yes.
post on to
Yes.
Facebook as well. So
Absolutely.
That's fine.
And Preston, if you so please, how can people reach you if they're interested?
Through MarketWorks Global.
There you go. He's a very smart man.
But they can reach him, and then there's a website actually on Marketworks Global, and a link to it for
Yes.
the work that he's doing and the passion that he has.
Okay,
Yeah.
before we wrap up, I like to say, when we first got here, Preston said, should I be here or not? And I'm like, absolutely. Look at all of the wealth of information you were able to share with us. And I mean, we probably could go on for hours and hours and hours and talk, because you guys are both interesting people. So thank you for, when I reached out to you, today to come, I was just so excited when I received a missed call from you. I said, oh, she probably butt dialed me. It was a mistake. But I'm like, okay. And I was like, well, let me just call back, because maybe it wasn't a mistake.
No, it was Talk Partnerships, wasn't it?
So I called her back, and she mentioned she was in town. I was like, are you available at 4 o'clock today? And God is good. So, we were able to bless people on the airways who are listening to this, and I'm sure they learned so much. And what my goal is to change the mindset of people who run their nonprofit. That is a mind of abundance and possibilities. And I love the emphasis on partnerships and structure, being innovative and not going in for the money because the money will come, and knowing to surround yourself around the right people.
That's right.
So thank you so much, guys.
It's been such a pleasure.
Yes,
Tamika.
thank you. My pleasure. Hey, guys, that's our story. We're sticking to it. Grow your nonprofit. If you want to learn more on how to grow your nonprofit, because we help startup, small, and stagnant nonprofits grow through strategic planning, fundraising support, and so much more, I can be reached at growyournon-profit.com. And we're out.
www.radiotv-evolution.com. Nous sommes Radio Évolution